Hi, good afternoon. I'm Addison Pollock. I'm the Director of Community Engagement with AARP Indiana, and I am pleased to be here today with Amy DeVries, who is the lead organizer with the Congregations Acting for Justice and Empowerment in Evansville, Indiana. Hi, Amy. How are you today? Oh, I think your mic's on mute.
Now it's unmuted. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad that you're with us today to talk about affordable housing in Evansville. Specifically, Evansville is one of those few communities in the state who has an affordable housing trust fund. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about Cage's work around housing affordability and advocating for that issue, but also talk about this particular tool that Evansville, the city of Evansville has, and some maybe an opportunity to strengthen it. So um, viewers, if you're out there, just before we dig into these questions, um, we are accepting live questions and comments. So if you have anything that you'd like to add to the conversation, please put it in the comments below and we'll take a break to address that. So um, without further ado, Amy, can you just tell us a little bit more, what is Congregations Acting for Justice and Empowerment, and what is your role with them? What do you do?
Right. So we're most commonly known as CAGE, and CAGE is a grassroots, interreligious, congregation-based community organizing group here in the greater Evansville area. We have now 24 member congregations, primarily in Vanderburgh County, city of Evansville. We also have member congregations in neighboring Posey and Warwick counties. And our purpose is to build people power needed to affect systemic change in the greater Evansville area. So we tackle tough community problems, and we use the power of organized people to hold local decision makers accountable for implementing the evidence-based solutions that we discover in our research process. So my role is I'm a community organizer, and my job is made a little bit easier by organizing congregations who are already used to coming together at least once a week. And they all come together under the banner of CAGE to tackle these problems.
Wonderful. That's a great segue into my next question. How many congregations do participate in? What are the main activities? Like if someone was to, they're part of a congregation and they get involved in Cage, what do you have your volunteers do?
So our volunteers are called leaders, and they're the leaders because my role is to identify leaders within our congregations who have a following within the congregation. So they're usually part of a ministry or other ministries within the congregation, and they are trained in grassroots best practices in tackling these problems. Most of our congregations are Christian congregations. We do have the Hindu temple and the mosque and the Unitarian church involved, and they are called justice ministries. And so those leaders in those congregations that we've identified agree to hold listening sessions to hear problems that people are experiencing or injustices that they're suffering from. And for instance, our regular process always starts in the late summer, runs through usually mid-September to mid-October. Last year, we held over 60 of these listening sessions and engaged nearly 600 people in the greater Evansville area, asking them what troubles you, what keeps you up at night, what problems are you or your loved ones impacted by. That's our first step in a 4-step process, is listening. In those listening sessions, folks who share their concerns are invited to be part of the solution. So we don't just sit around and talk about problems or wish that somebody would do something about problems. Those folks who shared are invited to network with that congregation and be part of its justice ministry. We do not hold any religious services. No one is required to even attend any of these congregations to network under the umbrella of CAGE. We just ask that they be committed to addressing the problem. So the first step in their commitment is to agree that they'll network, that they will attend all 4 of our major events They will bring at least 3 other people with them to our big Nehemiah action in the spring, where we publicly hold decision makers accountable. And they're also asked to consider sitting on a research team. So we listen, we identify problems. Our membership, everyone who commits to be a network member, that's what we call them, on our justice ministries, attend our first major meeting of the year. That's a community problems assembly. Regularly, we get between 300 and 500 of our folks who were in the listening process to come out. Each is given 1 vote. By that time, it's mid-November, and we've narrowed down the most discussed problems. CAGE staff and our team captains talk about the most discussed, narrow it down to 3. We hear testimonies from people who are directly impacted by those problems. So in the fall of 2014, it was affordable housing and utilities. That was a problem that was impacting people across all 3 counties. We voted, each person gets a single vote. We voted to tackle that problem in the fall of 2014. Any questions about the first 2 steps in the process?
I don't know. Dan, do we have any questions from the audience? In the meantime, we don't have any questions. Amy, how many congregations participate again?
We now have 24 who are member congregations, and our members pay dues based on their size. So a small congregation under 100 would pay a lot less in annual dues than a congregation of, say, St. Anthony Catholic Church or All Saints Parish, because they're larger, would pay more. And so after we've listened and identified a problem, our leaders attend a research to action training that's provided by our national parent organization, the DART Center, Direct Action Research and Training. It's been held virtually, obviously recently, but generally that is a Midwest training where CAGE and our sister organizations in the Midwest get together for a 2.5-day training on how to research, how to negotiate with officials before and at our big action. And so it's during this 4-month research process that we identify an evidence-based solution. We often take a broad problem, right, such as affordable housing and utilities, and narrow it down. And so that's how we discovered that our Affordable Housing Trust Fund that had been established many years ago was not well-funded, and not, it wasn't doing what it was designed to do, and that was to entice the development of low income housing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So great. From there, we, in the process of identifying an evidence-based solution, that year was we wanted more funding in that trust fund, right? So that it could provide funding to homeless prevention agencies, as well as low percentage loans to developers who were going to create at least some units that were income-based. We found that solution. We then asked the decision maker, in that case it would be the mayor of Evansville, to attend our Nehemiah action, and that's a long story about the 5th chapter of Nehemiah, and how he held a large community event and asked decision makers to address the injustice publicly, and how he managed to get some things changed. During that time, all of our member congregations are going back and reporting, this is what we're finding in the research. This is why it's important for you to attend our big action in the spring, so that the decision makers can see that our community is very concerned about this. And so that year, in the spring of 2015, we had over 1,100 people at Old National Events Plaza, and we asked the mayor to allocate $1 million into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. He did not agree to that, but we did get some money allocated by the Department of Metropolitan Development that started building some funding into that. And our 4th step is we follow up. So whether we get a yes or no from officials publicly, we follow up. If we receive a yes, we follow up to make sure that what they stated publicly in front of 11 or 1,400 people that they follow up with privately. If we get a no, we might try to negotiate to get some movement during that meeting, or we continue to do research and follow up. And so that year, even though we had a small amount that got allocated, we saw that it was doing some good, and we continued to meet with the mayor and with city council members who obviously have to approve the mayor's allocation. And that has led up to 2019, 2020, where now the mayor of Evansville is committed to $500,000 annually, as long as he is mayor, into the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And then this year, we asked for American Rescue Plan funds to be allocated. So I might have actually answered some questions ahead of that.
Yeah,
so,
you definitely did. Yeah,
so you can back up and.
No worries, no worries. So let's jump into that. Actually, you know, AARP cares about affordable housing too, just housing in general, housing options for older adults. And I want to stick on that point about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and just kind of want to step back and just talk about generally like what the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is, what it does, and then we can kind of talk more about the American Rescue Plan and how there's an opportunity there. Do you mind going into detail about what it is and what the funding is generally used for?
Mm-hmm. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is overseen by an advisory committee that is placed by nomination by the mayor and some members of city council. And the trust fund was set up to help offset costs of maybe low-income homeowners who in the past had been used for helping with maybe a roof that needed to be put on, or maybe someone was needed a furnace. We learned, they needed a furnace, and they would be homeless if that furnace wasn't repaired, and they received money from the trust fund. Ideally, the trust funds with the most impact entice developers to get low interest loans as gap funding. So for instance, say that there's a housing developer who's coming into Evansville as a plan for 100 units, maybe 2 or 3 bedroom units, and a percentage of those are going to be income based, and they've got all of their funding lined up. But if they go to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for maybe $400,000 at a low interest, that gap funding helps the project get completed. And the caveat is that they have to have so many units that are designated low income for the entire length of that loan, right? And that is really what loans are really what sustain that trust fund. We learned that prior to 2015, everything that was going out was in grants to either maybe some CDCs or maybe homeless prevention agencies. So there wasn't anything to sustain that. So we helped rewrite the guidelines. Cage did, some members of our housing team helped rewrite the guidelines a few years ago after visiting Nashville, Tennessee, and looking at what they did in the Gulch. And transforming that community and having low-income housing more available, so that now a percentage has to go out as loans and a percentage as grants, right? And with that, we've seen like Memorial CDC here in Evansville received a $400,000 grant for several units. I think it's several dozen units that will be income-based. And then we've also seen TrueVest, which is a for-profit housing development who goes into communities and renovates older homes and makes them energy efficient and low cost for qualified low-income buyers. And so they received a loan of around $140,000. So we've seen that the money is being used, and also by, for instance, homeless prevention agencies like Aurora, Habitat of Evansville has gone in and gotten grants for supplies. So it's and then there are a few again. If you're a qualified low-income home owner, you can apply for a loan for different repairs that would help people, as you're aware, age into place, right? We want them to be able to stay in their homes through the duration of their life, or as long as their health, sustains them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for bringing up that point, because that is really that's sort of our focal point as AARP. Making sure that individuals can age in place and age in their home and community where they want to be. So, Amy, before we talked about what the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is, you talked a little bit about how the city of Evansville will receive some funding from the American Rescue Act that was passed in March of 2021. So I know that you are thinking there might be potential for funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and just affordable housing, just replenishing the affordable housing stock in the city. Can you talk about what that opportunity looks like and how it will impact Evansville and specifically the trust fund?
Right. So Evansville, we learned that Evansville is going to get over $60 million in ARP funds. And I mentioned earlier, we have a parent organization called Direct Action Research and Training, the DART Center. And, the affordable housing crisis is not unique to Indiana. It is a crisis all over the United States. So our sister organizations, every single one of them, are working on this issue. And so we planned a national workshop to talk with some experts on the guidelines for the distribution of the ARP funds, and we learned that communities could use ARP funds to put into affordable housing trust funds, and it would be transformative in what could be done. And so many of our leaders sat in on that national workshop and then approached the mayor and at our big action just this past May, and asked if he would allocate $12 million into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We learned in our research that at least $2 million a year make trust funds effective and sustainable. And at that time, he did not have all of the guidelines back. Unfortunately, we understand that things move very slowly in government. He didn't have the guidelines back, and he said no to our ask of $12 million. We attempted to negotiate and ask for a little less, and then a little less, I think $5 million, which, was quite a bit increase from $500,000 a year, which had been doing good, but like one grant to Memorial, nearly drained it. We were promised that the mayor would allocate a seven-figure amount, millions, in 21 and 2022. We are still waiting to hear back the final guidelines from the federal government on the exact amount, but we were assured by Mayor Winnecke that our organization would be astounded at the amount that would be allocated. And so we're thrilled at the possibility of millions of dollars coming in over the next 2 years to the city of Evansville's trust fund, because we have our hands on what is the housing needs assessment that was done in 2020, and we understand that 2/3 of renter households will earn below $40,000 in 2025, and that baby boomers and seniors are going to be the population that's growing the most between now and then. And some seniors do not want to stay in the home that maybe they purchased when they were starting out employment or families, because of maybe the upkeep, or maybe it's a 2-story home and they don't want to spend the funds to make it accessible. And then there's also seniors who maybe are on disability or on Social Security, don't have IRAs or retirement funds, and they will need affordable rental housing as well. And so we believe that this could be transformative for the younger generations that we want to keep in Evansville, and then the seniors that want to age in place.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for tying that into AARP's priorities, because we completely agree. The American Rescue Plan funds is, it's coming into the state of Indiana, so we're hoping that some of our priorities as it relates to not just housing but transportation and just infrastructure, water infrastructure, things that would typically, increase utility rates if not for, this windfall of funding. So, if you wouldn't mind, I know that we had talked prior to this conversation on the phone, and I know that there are some steps that need to happen for that funding to actually be directed to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the funding from the federal government. Can you kind of go into detail about what you expect to, coming up in the next month or so related to that?
Mhm. Well, we know that there's a budget process. We know that budget talks will begin August 16th. We're hopeful that we'll hear something from the administration prior to then. But generally, the mayor presents a budget and he has some opening statements during those budget hearings. The public is not allowed to make comments during the budget hearing, but we understand in Cage that there are two sources of power: organized money and organized people. So obviously there's a lot of organized money coming. There's a lot of people in different departments that want to earmark that money. But we have the power of organized people. So we turn out dozens and dozens of people to city and county meetings. We plan to have our members there with their Cage buttons and affordable housing stickers on, sitting quietly, reminding city officials to prioritize affordable housing. And we have assured city officials that when the budget is up for vote, that we will have our members who are directly impacted by the housing crisis, senior and not senior, there to remind the officials of the need and the importance of approving the mayor's full allocation, whatever that is.
Sure.
So as far as like community members, any community member can attend budget hearings and show your support. Signs aren't allowed in, and again, you're not allowed public comments. But during the actual vote by city council, which is later in the year, you can make public comments, and it's a very simple process of just signing up. You're given 3 minutes to do so. Also, the mayor and city council members have email addresses and phone numbers available on the city county website. And I know that there are a few, probably more than a handful of city council members who are very responsive to emails. Cage has used a mass email campaign from our website where we send it out to our members and tell them with 2 clicks on our website, you can send an email to all city council members and sign your name. They could even personalize that email make a specific story of how they're impacted. That has been very impactful for our organization, especially during COVID, when all city council meetings were virtual and attendance was limited to just a few. We had dozens of our members emailing and calling officials. So those are some important ways that anyone in the city of Evansville, or if you have loved ones in the city of Evansville and you don't live in this area and you're concerned, you could still reach out to officials that way.
Definitely. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, so my understanding is that, as you just mentioned, this will go through the budget cycle process, right? The council will consider this funding as part of a budget package. Will there need to be any resolutions that are passed related to the American Rescue Plan funding, or will this all just kind of appear as a budget bill?
I know that there will be, it will come in the form of a finance ordinance. And so there actually could be a resolution. So that's definitely something that when we have, additional communication with the mayor's office, we will get out to folks, through our standard communication channels, whether that's, email and phone calls, and of course, posting on our social media to make the general population aware of it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we will be paying attention to that, definitely. Any closing comments, anything you want to share with the viewers out there on how they can get involved or they can support this effort?
Sure. So CAGE is a multi-issue organization. Of course, affordable housing is something that we have been working on for quite a while, but we also we tackle problems that come up, from the people. The people are crying out from. So we are tackling gun violence. We're tackling access to mental health care, jail diversion for those who have addictions or mental health needs. We also are going into Warwick County to tackle that affordable housing crisis. There is a huge disparity between the haves and the have-nots in Warwick County. I think that some people may think of Newburgh and more affluent residents when they think of Warwick County, but in some cases there's 60% poverty in some townships. And so we have been looking as an organization at approaching county officials along with some other community outreach groups that want to address homelessness and create affordable housing and transitional housing into Warwick County, looking into ARP funds, American Rescue Plan funds, to establish perhaps a county affordable housing trust fund, which I believe will be the first in the state of Indiana. I don't believe there is a county affordable housing trust fund anywhere. It's going to take some work. So if you're a Warwick County resident or you have friends or family and you're concerned about that, you can contact CAGE through our Facebook page. You can contact us through our website or by calling 812-760-3700 for more information. And also, we are a nonprofit. And so we do not accept, because we aren't a direct service provider, we're a direct action group. We don't receive United Way funds. We obviously don't receive funds from the city or the county. We think that would be a conflict of interest. And our goal is to be self-sustaining. And so anyone who maybe doesn't live in the community but appreciates our efforts, there are easy ways to invest, and you can find that on our website and Facebook page too. We call it a financial investment because you see a direct return on your financial investment, and that's a transformed community. So I always have to get the pitch in for that. We have 2 full-time staff members and hundreds of volunteer leaders who get the work done every year.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we have a mutual volunteer actually, so that's how we were connected. So
Right.
appreciate that, and I appreciate you, Amy, joining us today for this conversation and just kind of digging into the affordable housing issue in Evansville and talking about the trust fund. Just really quickly, producer Dan, if you don't mind popping on the Evansville website, government website, just so folks out there, if you're interested in learning more about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, if you want to look up your city councilor's contact information, please do so. You can find that at that website there. And then once again, CAGE's website, we can put that up for any folks who want to find more information about the good work that Amy and her volunteer leaders are doing in the city of Evansville and beyond. So Amy, thanks for joining us again. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Great, thank you. I wanted to put one more plug in that
Yeah.
most of our volunteers are 55 and up. So these are folks who have who in their retirement could be golfing or moved to Florida, and they are sticking around this community in order to make it better, not just for themselves but for future generations. And they are an awesome group of folks to work with.
Absolutely, I completely agree. So thanks for that plug. Appreciate it.
Great. Well, thanks so much for asking me to share.
Oh yeah,
today. I
definitely.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.